These two special coffee pots, demi cup and saucer, passed down to me from my grandmother. Thought I'd come on today and do just a Noni's Nook. And Noni's Nook is just sharing some of my own personal memories with you and chit-chatting. And it's kind of sometimes just a little mix. But today, I want to share just some memories that I have of my grandmother. I was fortunate enough to have two grandmothers when I was growing up. Both of them passed when I was an adult. Both of my grandmothers were named Mary. They were both very unique and special in their own way. Um, my paternal grandmother um, was more of what I would call a modern Millie type. She was a grandma, would get her hair done, and during that time frame I remember it being in a beehive type hairstyle, and she would uh, dye her hair and didn't want her grays. And like I said, she was more of a modern, kind of modern Millie grandma. Very meticulous, very neat, very clean, and um, very stern. But I loved her. She could bake, and she made delicious homemade raviolis. That was kind of her specialty. And then my other grandma, we mostly called her Little Grandma. She was maybe on her very, very good days was all of 4'9", 4'10". She was teeny tiny. And she had the smallest, littlest feet. I think when I was in maybe third grade, my foot fit in her shoes because I was always welcome at her house. And I was always welcome to her closet. And I was always welcome to play with whatever she had. And she was far, far from a modern Millie grandma. She was originally from Italy, spent many, many years there, had her children there, my mom, and couldn't speak a whole lot of English. So as I grew up with her, even though there was that language barrier, she spoke in Italian, I was able to understand and communicate with her, part with her English words and part with her Italian words. And we did fine. And I loved her and I adored her. And she was the sweetest person I've ever known. She was very, very devout to her faith. She prayed the rosary all the time. That was her belief. I witnessed just her little prayer books that were written in Italian, and witnessed her reading those prayer books all the time. And I have been given those special prayer books by my family, passed down to me. So that's very special. Those were things that were very unique to her. She was so simple and so plain, but she was that typical little sweet grandma with the bluish gray hair and the tight little curls. And what I remember most about her were her hands. Her hands were so twisted as she had gotten older, and you could just look at her hands. Her skin was so soft, but they were truly hands of a very, very hard worker. And that's what the memory is in my mind's eye when I think of her. I think of her hands. Even though they were all twisted and arthritic, I can still see her hands kneading dough and making pasta and gnocchi and bread. And Um, Such great memories. And so I know we, in as modern, always slathering on lots and lots of lotion and got to get our hands to look beautiful and, don't want any age spots showing or not those veins sticking out. But when I think of her hands, I just think of pure joy, pure happiness, and I love that picture in my mind of her hands. And one of the things that we shared together, I'll tell you a couple of her words in her pronunciation. When she wanted butter, she would tell me to, and it would come out part Italian and a few words in English, to please get the butter from the refrigerator. And I could pick up those few words in Italian, and she would translate butter to burr. Please get the burr. And I knew exactly what that was. And so we had that kind of language between us, that there were certain words that she would use, and they're just endeared to me. I can't remember all of them now, but I sure knew them growing up. One of the things that she would do, and I don't really know why or how this started, but I grew up in a household with an electric percolator coffee pot, and my parents always had that coffee pot going all the time. You know, first the one on the stove, and then when the electric ones came out, that was the big hit, and you plug it in and you always had coffee cooking and smelling the house up. So as a kid, I loved the scent of that, but I wasn't so crazy about the taste unless it had a ton of sugar and milk in it. Well, one of the things that was familiar to our family was real, true Italian coffee made in these little coffee pots. And I have two in my collection, and this size. And they unscrew. Oops. Hasn't been used in a long time. Has a little strainer for your coffee. And as you can see, the inside's pretty corroded. Don't think I'll be making any coffee in this. And you pack your coffee in there with your water, and you just put the little pot on the burner, and away it goes. And this was my grandmother's, and which was given to me. It's inscripted MOKA, Mocha Express, made in Italy. And this one's not quite so bad, but I don't even have the strainer part for it. But as you can see, it's the little coffee pot. And they're so cute. And they were given to me, passed down to me, so that I could have this. Is one of the coffee pots that my grandmother, when I would come over to visit her, would always make. That strong espresso Italian coffee. And she had this idea that I loved coffee. Well, I loved it when my parents would let me have just that much coffee in a cup with cream and sugar. But this Italian express coffee was like, yeah, it would make your hair stand on edge. But for some reason, she thought that I loved it. And so when I came to visit, she'd put on the Italian coffee. And she would serve me a little bit. She'd put a little bit of cream in it and a little hit of that coffee in these little demi cups. And again, these were given to me after she passed. I loved those little coffee cups. And I hated the coffee. It was like so strong and so bitter. And there are some days now that I just like, I'd craved one of those cups of coffee because I need it. But it'd be like, I can remember having a conversation with my mom going, where did Graham get the idea that I love this coffee? Because it didn't matter how much cream I put in it or how much sugar. It was like way, way strong. But that was something special that she always did when I came over. And she just felt that I loved and adored coffee in this little coffee pot, which I adored the little coffee pot. But what I have now that I adore is that memory of her making that coffee. It always smelled really good because you know what espresso smells like, but getting it down was a little bit of a struggle, but I always managed to. And now I have these, and I have a few of these, probably maybe 4 or 6 that were left from her little cute set, and I am reminded of her memory all the time because they sit on top of my Hoosier. So that was my special memory of my very special grandmother who I loved and adored. And right now, I would give anything to sit across the table and gladly drink a cup of her little Italian coffee. So that's kind of my little Noni's Nook story today, and I'm going to kind of add to it. I've been out running errands all day, got caught in the rain, and it rained a lot in the neck of the woods where I live. But I did have to make a quick trip to Walmart to the pharmacy, and oh, how convenient that the cosmetic section is just a few aisles right there by the pharmacy. And so I picked up this beautiful illuminating palette. It's gorgeous. Look at the colors. By e.l.f. I was like, wow, this is absolutely beautiful. Do I need it? No. Do I want it? Yeah. I love those colors. That's my palette, my comfort. So I'll be using this and letting you know what I feel about that. Sometimes, you know, the temptation is just, And the next thing I'm just going to kind of mention in Noni's Nook is as we're starting to, tomorrow is Wednesday and Lent starts and we're gearing into Easter and spring and all of that, it's time to get those Tootsies in good shape, or as some people may refer to them as claws or claw hooks or whatever you want to call them. It's time to get those pedicures done. And if you're not one, I'm kind of picky about a pedicure out, so I kind of tend to do my own. But one thing I did pick up for the pedicure at Walmart, it's because I have all kinds of pedicure things to do my own, is this Pedi Scrub foot buffer, and it's called Body Wash in a Sponge. So I haven't tried it. It's lavender tea tree oil. And I thought, well, you know, it certainly can't hurt. So I'll do a soak, and I always soak in Epsom salt, and I like lavender, chamomile. It just really softens your feet, and it's just so relaxing, and your feet feel really good. And I'll use this when my soak is done, and then I am going to use my Rodin Plus Fields microdermabrasion paste. And I love this so much for my face that I'm like, I'm doing my pedicure with this. I think it's going to be nice because honestly, my skin feels so soft after I use this. So I'm like, why not bring that softness to those Tootsies? So that's all I have today for Noni's Nook. I hope you enjoyed my memory. Until next time, be kind, be humble, and age gracefully. Bye. Next cup of coffee is in memory of Grandma.